Welcome back to Those Astrology Girls. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Keelie.
And in this episode, we're diving into all the 2025 major astrology vibes. Think big transits, retrogrades, nodal shift, and of course, eclipse magic. You're going to want to get your notebooks out for this because we're going to be mentioning a lot of key dates so that you can keep track of what's coming next year. We're also going to be talking about the biggest shifts that you can expect in 2025 because we have a lot of major planets, big, outside, evolutionary, slow planets, making new changes into new signs. So a lot of new cycles are upcoming and we've got a lot to cover.
Yes. Oh my goodness. This is such a big episode and there's so much for us to unpack together today. Nicole and I are really here to serve as these guides for you guys when you're thinking about 2025 and what's in store astrologically and how can you really work with 2025 astrology energy to really support you and just living more in alignment with yourself and also with the stars, of course. And as always, we just want to say before we dive into today's episode that we really see astrology as just being this tool. We're not here to tell you how to live your life, how to move through next year, but really we're just here to give you some information to help you just use this information in a way that can support you in whatever feels most supportive for you. So just had to preface this whole episode first by just sharing that with you guys because I know there can be a lot of people out there saying a lot of different things and we really love to approach astrology from this really light and fun perspective.
Absolutely. So important to think that way. All of it, take what resonates, leave what doesn't.
So we're just going to dive right in, you guys, because we have so much to unpack today. So just kind of kicking off by sharing some of the big key themes that you can look for in 2025 astrology. So today specifically what we're going to be diving into are the nodal shifts and the eclipses. We all love eclipse season, so we're of course going to be talking about that. We've got 3 generational planets that have recently transitioned / are transitioning into new signs this year. So a lot of different big energy there. Saturn is going to be moving into a new sign as well this year. And then we've got some retrograde planets that we're not going to touch on fully in this episode, but we are going to create a whole other episode specifically for the 2025 retrograde. So we may speak to it a little bit here and there, but ultimately that's going to be a whole separate episode that you guys get to look forward to. Yay!
Exactly. Just like you can expect rain most times of the year, you can always expect Mercury to go retrograde every single year multiple times. So we'll cover that again. But Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour, may have ended in 2024, but we, as a collective, are moving into a new era. It's a year of unique energy. It's really exciting. To know that we're alive and that we chose to be alive during a time where we have so many big shifts happening at the same time, it feels really, really cool. All 3 generational planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Saturn, which isn't generational, but it's a big move, are moving signs this year. This is a big deal. So Pluto already moved into Aquarius for good for the next 20 years. At the end of 2024, we know that energy. We did a whole episode on it, but we're seeing major shifts, including Uranus moving into Gemini. We're seeing Neptune and Saturn move into Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. And that means it is a year with new and fresh energy, beginning a whole new cycle. We also start the year off with a shift of the nodal axis. So this happens every 18 months, very normal, but it's happening in the beginning of January, and it brings us new themes and new eclipse themes for 2025.
Yeah. Talking first just about the eclipses, because again, like I said before, that's always such a hot topic every single year. And this year specifically with the shift of the nodal axis, that means we've got a whole new set of lessons and growth for us to encounter this year. So every year when we think about, what's actually happening when we have an eclipse, I really like to think about it as the new moon and the full moon times 10. They're incredibly powerful portals of energy. So they bring a lot of times major endings and new beginnings. And ultimately what they're here to do is they're really here to push us towards this major soul level growth and evolution. And specifically, we're being pushed to grow through the energy of the sign that the lunar nodes are in for that eclipse. So every 18 months, the lunar nodes are going to change signs. And, like we said, with that, it's going to come with this new cycle of growth, these new series of lessons for us to learn on this soul level. And so in 2025, we are shifting completely from the Aries Libra nodal axis to the Pisces Virgo nodal axis. And this lunar node axis shift into Pisces Virgo is going to happen on January 11th, 2025, where it's going to remain until July 26th of 2026.
Yeah, it's a big deal when the lunar nodes shift, and we all feel it because of these eclipses. Those accelerations of things just become really palpable, and you can feel it in the air. And so we have been in the Aries Libra axis, which is really a difference of moving toward our own individualism and initiation action oriented vibe from like worrying too much about relationships. So when the North Node is in Aries, that's what we're going toward, we're moving toward. And the South Node being in Libra was something we were trying to release. And so since 2023 through 2024, that is the energy we've been experiencing. And if you think about this in the general, like the basic zodiac wheel, this is the first in the seventh house axis. So this is like the I am to I thou relationship axis. It's a big change. And so moving into Pisces Virgo will bring about an obvious change. And so we'll have one final Aries eclipse on March 29th. It will be a solar eclipse, and that's it for a long time. So it was good until we end up, moving around. And while the nodal shift happens in January, it's always moving in retrograde. So the nodal axis moves technically backwards if you were thinking of it that way in retrograde, but it's in constant movement. So that means we'll have that Aries motion just one last time before the nodes fully transition and move into Pisces. So what does the Pisces Virgo axis have to tell us? What new lessons are there for us? What are we going to be learning this year into next year? So the North Node will be in Pisces at this time, and the South Node will travel through Virgo. So this whole axis, if we think about this on the traditional scale, is the 12th, 6th house axis. And so instead of 1st and 7th, we're now moving to 12 and 6. And so this is a lot about surrender versus control. Virgo is big on control and we love them for it. But Pisces is like, hey, I'm just going to surrender to this. I'm going to let it happen. I'm going to let it roll. And so you can see that collectively, we might not be as focused on that, but there's still that stronghold on control in the South Node for us to work with and see where is that coming up for us in our life. We also are going to have a lot of healing through acceptance. Pisces is a beautiful sign. Healing through acceptance is one of its main themes, and we'll encourage that through this entire shift of the nodal axis. And then also, too, we're going to see a big shift in service and spirituality. Pisces is extremely deep and spiritual, and it's going to help us all kind of focus on that. And as we get into some other transitions this year with other planets we're going to talk about, you're going to see how the past 12 years have been really focused on a spiritual awakening for many people. And this Pisces shift, this Pisces nodal shift will give us that kind of closing chapter energy to that. The key dates here for the nodal axis shifts and the eclipses, it's where you want to write these down because these are big dates. We have a lunar eclipse March 14th, 2025 at 23 degrees in Virgo. We have that last solar eclipse March 29th at 9 degrees Aries. And then we have a lunar eclipse September 7th at 15 degrees Pisces, and then another solar eclipse September 21st at 29 degrees Virgo. As you'll see, there's always usually 2 sets of eclipse cycles, solar and lunar each year, and they are big, big energy portals. Like Keelie said, new moon, full moon on steroids. It is a time.
And one of the ways that you can really work with this eclipse energy. Well, first of all, I want to say it is not like your typical new moon, full moon where you set intentions and you do big ceremonies. Like the energy is so potent, you guys, when it comes to actually like working with the eclipses, that it's almost one of those things that it's like just let go and like let the energy like do what it needs to do during that time. It's not a time to try to like force the energy into one direction or the other wherever it wants to go, because ultimately whatever's happening is what is meant to happen for you on a soul level. I mean, really, this is like soul level growth and lessons that you're learning as a soul. So what's coming is meant for you. There's no like maneuvering it in any way that you want, like we could with like the new moons and full moons typically. This is truly like for you to just be so open to receiving whatever lessons and whatever growth is coming for you. However, there's still a way where you can have some fun awareness around maybe how this energy is going to impact you on a personal level. And so one of the ways that you can do this is, first of all, taking a look at your chart. So running your chart and looking at where is the energy of Pisces and Virgo sitting in your chart. And what that's going to tell you is that's going to say, okay, when you're looking at that energy in your chart, check out first if you have any planets in any of those signs. And then also look at what house that sign is occupying in your chart. So looking at the planets and then also looking at the specific degree of the planet. So Nicole just went through the specific dates of the eclipses, and she shared the exact degree that the eclipse is going to be occurring in Virgo and Pisces. So like the first one is going to happen in March at 23 degrees Virgo. The second one in March is happening at 9 degrees Aries. And then the two in September are happening at 15 degrees Pisces and 29 degrees Virgo. Okay, so again, write those degrees down and go look if you have any planets within 5 degrees of the eclipse degree. Then that means that that aspect of you is really undergoing some significant growth around those lessons that Nicole was talking about as it relates to the Pisces Virgo lessons that we're learning. Also, just even looking too at the house placements. So if you have Virgo or Pisces in your first, 4th, 7th, or 10th specifically, then know that this is going to be a really transformational eclipse period for you. This is a big part of you is going to be undergoing some major transformation, either in your area of life around like yourself and your body and your self-image, in your home and family life, in your one-on-one, contractual relationships, maybe marriage, maybe business, and then also like in your career, if it's like the 10th house. So making note of those things, this could be a really big time for you, and just having that level of awareness that, wow, okay, I'm experiencing an eclipse in one of these houses, like right here, me. First and 7th house, I'm like, oh gosh. Aries and Libra eclipses were pretty quiet for me, which I appreciated. And then now we're swinging into Pisces Virgo, and I'm like, oof, I've got 2 planets in Pisces that are going to be activated by the Pisces eclipse that we have this year. And then a whole lot of Virgo ascendant in my chart. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but we encourage you to check that out for yourself just to see, okay, well, what soul level growth am I going to be experiencing?
Yeah, I just experienced, I'd get almost like 4 years of constant growth with
I was going to say, you and your Aries moon or sun.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, which one?
My Aries, Keelie and I are business partners on the Astrology podcast, and we're like, wait, where's your sun again? No, just kidding.
I have so many like Aries Scorpio people that I'm like, I have to remind myself like, okay, yes, you were this.
I know, it's funny.
You're an Aries moon.
Aries moon, Scorpio sun, stellium, and so since the Taurus Scorpio axis and then the Aries Libra, I've just been eclipsing it for a while, since what, like 2019? No, that's too long, but it's been a while, it feels like. Another note too quickly about eclipses, this is, like Keelie said, not the time to do rituals, not the time to try to bend this to your will. Don't charge your crystals either. I feel like no moon water for these eclipses unless you want to grow like miracle grow plants, maybe. It can get wild. So from here, I think the next major thing to talk about is what 2025 astrology major shift to generational planets, like what does that actually mean? Because everyone's talking about it, and as astrologers we know it's a really big deal, but we want to make it tangible for you. And so generational planets, when they shift, it's important, it matters, but why? So generational planets, outer planets, they move really slowly. When we come to Earth, like as a cohort of people, think of this as like your high school graduating class or more. We're creating a generation, we're creating an era. We all pick it together because they move so slowly. And so these are longer chapters of our lives. They're collective and individual. They, of course, create different aspects for our own personal charts, but as you've heard Keelie and I discuss, we have completely different charts, but we're both Pluto and Scorpio. We're part of this generation. We know it. They mark larger themes of history. This is, where we invite in growth, where we have direction, transformation, evolution is happening. All of the outer planets this year, and basically like a month into 2024, are changing. So all the outer planets are exploring a new zodiac sign this year, which is big. I can't even tell you the last time that this happened. I looked it up and I forget. To be honest, we were not alive. So when this happens, the current reality of our life changes. This is those times in history when people go, it just all got so different so fast. And this is what we are here for right now. So the overall shifts. Pluto entered Aquarius in November 2024. So the first full year of us experiencing this Pluto and Aquarius energy is 2025. So listen to episode 4 of Those Astrology Girls, where we talk all about Pluto moving into Aquarius and what that means, what are the themes, what we can expect over the next 20-ish years. Then Neptune dips into Aries from March to October 2025. Now, We'll talk about this, how these planets move so slowly that sometimes they go forward, they go backward a little bit. These are retrogrades, but outer planets, we don't really track the retrogrades as closely as we do for things like Mercury. Then Uranus is going to dip into Gemini from July to November 2025 as well. And because these are all happening at the same time, that's what makes it a really big deal. Every time one of these planets moves, it's a big deal, but happening together, it's like, I don't even know how to explain the magnitude of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like to think about the generational planets as kind of they're flavoring the climate that we're living in. So if you think about it, if you were spending, because Neptune takes like 13 to 14 years to move through a sign. And so it's like living in one, let's just say Texas, because I'm from Texas. Like you have these like mild winters. It's like, these hot summers. You're just like used to the weather down there. And then all of a sudden, maybe like you move completely up north to Minnesota. And all of a sudden, like the climate's completely different and you're having to adjust and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like it's just a huge shift in just the overall climate that we are living in. It's an energy. It's an energetic shift. So we're all seeing through different lenses, thinking through different lenses, whatever it is, based on, the planet that is moving signs. So what we talked about already is we've got, already stuff March is a pretty big month. Okay, we got an eclipse happening, 2 eclipses in March, and then we're ending March on the 30th with Neptune's movement into Aries. It's going to stay in Aries until October 22nd of this year. So it's a dip, it's a preview into what to expect with Neptune in Aries over the next 13 to 14 years. And then it's going to move back into Pisces to end out 2025 until January 2026, where it's going to move in for good. So Neptune is the planet of, think, spirituality, dreams, mysticism, creativity, inspiration. So shifts in Neptune really bring these shifts to our own perception and what is reality. And ultimately, it's really like shifting the way that we are seeing the world. Again, like the climate that we're living, the way that we're seeing the world.
Yeah, I mean, Neptune is such a unique planet. And honestly, I really started to connect with Neptune this year. And I think it's because I could feel this shift happening. In 2012, when Neptune shifted into Pisces, there was this untethered vibe that came about. And so, it's been in Pisces since then. And this really marked a huge change of things for people. And I know like a lot of things in 2012 began a spiritual awakening for a lot of people. I know you and I both kind of had our own touch into spirituality later on in this transit and for different reasons. Hint, Saturn. Saturn had a big thing to do with it, but it served us in a lot of ways, this Neptune and Pisces moment. But it led to a lot of confusion, which Neptune can do. I think of Neptune as like fog on a beach. You're walking. It looks beautiful. It's just a foggy, nice beach. But then all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's a lot of rocks over there. I didn't even see those rocks. And that's Neptune. It's kind of giving you that hazy delusion in some places, like you said, clouding our reality. So Neptune and Pisces was really a boost to the spiritual awakening of so many people. But I think it led to the stagnation of a lot of growth in a lot of ways, because sometimes a lot of people are stuck in this feel it to heal it cycle with Neptune and Pisces that could be beneficial. But I think what's going to happen when we move into Aries is that people are going to be done like waiting for things to happen, and they're going to finally take some action to make some real grounded change. And I think that's going to be really important. Of course, there's shadow sides to both of these and benefits to both of these, but this is a huge shift. So when it moves into Aries Neptune, it will feel like a creative cycle is being born because it is the first sign of the zodiac, very initiatory, very bold. We're going to be ditching ideal, like the Pisces ideal, for actual practical action-oriented changes that will leave a big impression. This is going to be felt, and we're going to get that preview of it in 2025 and then move into that for good in 2026 for quite some time. So Aries, like I said, will bring that initiatory energy. People will stop dreaming and start doing. And this is big for business. Anyone who runs a business, I think we need to think about how is this going to change the way that we approach our clients and that our clients are approaching us and what kind of services they need. We can expect that to change the way that we create, the way we do business, innovation, how people are relating to each other, and so much more that we can't even predict. Neptune and Aries will invite us to look at our own home, like internally, what are we looking at? And, instead of looking outward and judging others. So there's a Trevor Hall song that says that, like, look in your own home, what will you find? And I think it says like, let it move you. And I feel like that is like the end of Pisces and Neptune and like moving into Aries. Like stop looking and judging others and say like, what needs to happen for me? and bringing that individual aspect to it. It feels like major rebirth vibes to me. It's a way that we could experience a rude awakening at, once the Piscean dreaminess kind of is like, it's like waking up from a bad dream or even a really good dream. And you're like waking up to your alarm, just going on and on, like, gotta go, gotta get out of bed, gotta make it happen. So when that dreaminess abruptly ends, we're going to move into bold action and forward progress. It is time.
I can't even just emphasize how wild it is that Neptune, which takes, I don't have the number, like 180 years to just like cycle through all 12 signs of the zodiac. I mean, this is literally the end of an entire cycle of Neptune's growth. Like, Neptune's coming through, like reborn, like a baby from the womb. Like, here's my new chapter in life. Like, I mean, really, this is the end of one life that Neptune has lived. And it's the complete start of a brand new life for Neptune. So where I wanted to transition us is really talking about how you can think about this, transition and shift from Neptune and Pisces to Neptune and Aries is, how does this play a role in your own life? So first of all, looking at if you have any planets in early degrees Aries, then Neptune is going to be making its way over those parts of you. I have 2 planets in the late degrees of Pisces. So I was going through this transit after I learned about astrology. And so watching just how it unfolded with Pisces moving over certain aspects of myself, specifically my moon and my Venus, very important personal planets. It was really interesting to just witness the way that Neptune influenced those parts of me. I noticed that I was very much just dreaming about what could be, dreaming of life in like a different way, and almost a way where I'm like, what's real and what's not? Like, I don't have to like settle for any of this in life. Like, I get to just expand and just, I can shoot for the stars, and it's great for dreaminess. But at the same time, is it actually reality? Is that something that like is actually what you truly want? There can be this confusion, there can be this fogginess, there can be this haziness around what you want and what you already have. And, also a very, I was reading somebody called it like this divine discontent with life, where it's like, gosh, I wish there was something more here. Like, I wish I could, achieve this or do this. And why can't I? Anything's possible, right? And so for those parts of you, it's just so good to know that like when Neptune's kind of crossing over, it creates that like fogginess. It's like you're driving in the fog. Maybe things are more confusing, hazy, like we said. So look at those parts of you and just know those parts of you are going to be influenced if you have anything early degrees Aries.
Absolutely. I think Neptune is going to bring a big shift, and I'm excited to see what it is. But another big shift we're looking at is Uranus entering Gemini. So the dates for this are July 7th through November 7th, 2025, and then again in April 2026. It will remain in Gemini until August 2032, and then a little bit of 2033. I think you're getting the gist here that these planets are slow moving and they do a little bit of like wiggling back and forth toward the beginning and the end of their transits. But Uranus entering Gemini is another really big deal. It is. Uranus typically spends 7 years in each sign, and this is changing the climate we're living in when it's going through that sign. And so, Uranus is the planet of shocking, sudden change, revolution, and it loves to rock the boat of stability. It loves to. It's just like, oh, you liked this? Well, it's all going to change again. The only constant is change, and I think Uranus is great at reminding us that. The planet that seeks freedom from structures and limitations of any kind, Uranus. You can just expect wild stuff. But it's been in Taurus for the past 7-ish years, and it didn't like it. It didn't love it. It was a very slow moving, stable sign of Taurus. That is all Taurus energy. And Uranus is like, this is boring. This is boring. But it was challenging some structures of stability of, different things like, food systems and the way we have money and, just creating a lot of different tension in those areas. And so it seeks change and innovation, Uranus, wherever it is, and freedom. And Taurus was like, hard no, like, this is not going to happen. Like, we need to remain stable, like old school. Like, we're going to keep doing it the way we've been doing it, and that's okay. But Uranus was like, that's okay, I'm going to rock the boat anyway. And so we saw major changes in these areas of stability and foundations while Uranus was in Taurus. And I think as we move, as we see it move into Gemini, we're going to see what exactly shifted. And then a whole new climate of changes is going to happen.
Oh, yeah. It's a completely different energy going from Taurus to Gemini. I mean, Uranus and Gemini is going to create this whole just new flavor of energy that we are living in. All things Gemini really are going to be ramped up. They're going to really pick up in speed. Gemini is such a quick and fast paced and fast moving and really embraces change. And you're just like, yes, let's do it. Let's just create chaos in the world. Not really, but it does. It's like embraces like the chaos. It's like sudden change, like let's keep things interesting and spicy. And Gemini is like, all right, what are we going to do? Like, I'm so excited. Let's go for it. And so, really like something that we can expect through this is just some extreme creativity and innovation. Think major, technological breakthroughs and technological advancements even. And we talked about this too with like Pluto and Aquarius, like that's also expected. And Nicole even pointed out in that episode, she was like, yeah, and then just like wait for Uranus entering Gemini. Like I think we're really going to see some of those like Pluto and Aquarius themes pick up too once Uranus enters Gemini. So a lot of shifts in just even the way that we communicate and the media, the way that we, have just our normal channels of communication and media channels right now. We're expecting change with that. The world of technology and media and communication as we know it today really is going to change. And you can also expect some of those changes to be really sudden and shocking too. As someone with Mars and Gemini, I'm like so comfortable with this. I'm like, yes, bring it on. But I realize too, some people might be like, oh my gosh, like technology changes. I cannot. But I mean, we already are seeing it with like AI and just all the crazy stuff there. So I'm like, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be cool.
I think so too. I think that the independent, free press movement has already sparked some changes that are going to happen with this, but especially like you said with AI. And I also think that it's going to sound absolutely wild, but I feel like there's going to be a huge rise in telepathy. And I know that that is like weird to say, but it's not unusual. And if there's any time that there's going to be a rise in telepathy, it's going to be when Uranus is in Gemini. So we shall see. This might get cut. We'll see.
I think we're going to be like talking to things on other planets,
Or are we already? We just don't know. Am I out on a walk talking to myself and like someone else is responding in another realm? Probably.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have plenty of things to look forward to, and those astrology girls will keep you updated as soon as we know what's going on astrologically. But okay, so we have another big shift happening in 2025. Are you getting the theme?
All the big shifts.
All the big shifts. Everything's just like, woo, big time. So Saturn shifts again from Pisces to Aries in 2025. This is a lot of big energy moving to Aries. And this is really cool because, like we said, it's the first sign of the zodiac. And that means we're beginning a whole new cycle when we get there. Like just like Neptune having its whole rebirth into Aries, so is Saturn. Saturn has its rebirth quite more often than Neptune, clearly a party animal, but
every 30 years.
Every 30 years, just a new person coming at you. So Saturn enters Aries on May 24th, where it will stay until September 1st. Then it goes back into Aries for good in February 2026 for, a couple years. So the overall energy of Saturn in Aries, think can do, fearless energy, ready to get things done. I think this shift is going to be really monumental when you compare it with Neptune and Uranus and Pluto. It's just going to add to that already like momentous energy we've got going on. So, you're going to start seeing things as they truly are. That's what Saturn wants for us all. And especially in Aries, there's no mask here. There's no blinders here. Like Aries is like, woo, let's just do it, And so if you listen to our Saturn episode number 5, you'll know it takes Saturn 28 to 30 years to make its way fully around the entire wheel. So it spends approximately 2.5 years in each sign. So this marks the end of a 30-year cycle for when it moves into Aries. And it went through all 12 signs of the zodiac and the start of another. So that's that whole idea of this new era. We experienced this transit once again in 1996 through 1999. So if you've been around that long, which I think many of you have, think about what started for you in 1996. And you might have been really young, like Keelie and I, like we were very, very young. So I was like, wow, I got bangs that year. I don't know, maybe that was a big deal. But if you were born around 1996, this could be the year of your Saturn return. So keep an eye out for that and listen to that Saturn return episode. But, 1996 to 1999 was a time that it was in Aries, but we also experienced this in 1967 to 1969. And I definitely wasn't here for this, but I'm telling you this because it was the summer of love. Now, this was a time of major societal changes and, just a time where things went from like one old era to the next very, very quickly, like completely. Think about the summer of love, Google it, and just look at how much happened in the collective in just those 2 short years. And I think that can give us a vibe of like how quickly and how much can change when all of these big planets move. So Aries is also ruled by Mars, which is the god of war. So we can also expect new cycles relating to geopolitical cycles and changes to that landscape as well. Believe me, we're not saying that this means war. It just means changes in leadership, changes in power, changes in the way that other countries relate to each other. And we've been seeing that bubble to a head for quite some time. So no fear here. It's just the theme.
Yeah, and Saturn is a planet of structures. We've talked about this in our Saturn episode, but Saturn rules the sign of Capricorn. And it very much is all about structures and bringing limitations. So it's seeking that through the sign of Aries, through Aries related themes that we encounter on a collective level. So even too, just kind of thinking about, okay, what kind of structure is Saturn wanting to put into place? And sometimes like Saturn's either comfortable in a sign or it's not that comfortable in a sign. Like Saturn wasn't comfortable in Pisces and Saturn's not going to be comfortable in Aries really either. So, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable, trying to set structures, especially into a sign of Aries. It's like, I'm just here to trailblaze and do a bunch of things and shake shit up or whatever, whatever Aries wants to do. Nicole's moon knows.
Yeah, it just wants to throw a sandal at someone. So it's ready.
But, and too, like Nicole, it's going to be interesting too. For example, you have your moon in Aries. So this is going to be a time where that aspect of you over these next, 2 to 3 years, 2.5 years that Saturn is in Aries, there's going to be probably emotional lessons, right? Like our moon represents our inner self, our emotional body. And so there's going through a series of lessons around that, for you specifically. And so that's same with anyone else who has planets in Aries is like looking at how is Saturn going to be influencing that aspect of you?
Yeah, it's going to be important to pay attention to all of this because with Neptune meeting up with Saturn in Aries, that brings a whole new flavor, a whole new climate to the picture. And I think with Aries, like bold, can do, fearless, childlike wonder attitude with the sign of structures and the sign of kind of delusional faith in oneself and dreaminess, it's going to be an interesting combo for some time. I was actually born with those 2 planets exactly conjunct in my chart, just in Capricorn. So it's an interesting thing. And we're going to have a whole new generation of people with that same conjunction experiencing those life lessons, but in Aries. And so it's going to be interesting and it's going to be fun. I think the kids coming in 2025 are going to have some really interesting new charts. They're going to mark the beginning of a whole new era. And so pay attention to that. What are they here to bring? What lessons are they here to serve? It's really cool.
Oh, it's so fascinating to think about. I always love thinking about that. Like the new babies coming through, like a new generation of babies with Neptune and Aries and Uranus and Gemini and Saturn and Aries. Like, wow, how interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I also was thinking too, I was just envisioning Saturn and Aries feels very much like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like, I'm trying to go forward. And then Saturn's like, oh, let's put the brakes and create some structure. And Aries is like, I just want to keep going.
Yeah, it's like, did you forget something back there? And you're like, oh crap, I did. I forgot my shoes. And you're like back then again, having to keep going.
Where is the sandal I'm trying to throw? I'm reaching for it. Where is it?
And for those of you,
if you have not listened to our episode 2, where we talk about, was it episode 2? No, yeah. It was episode 1. It was episode 1, our sun, moon, and rising.
Yeah,
if you go back and listen to episode 1, you'll understand why we keep talking about throwing sandals as an Aries.
It's a canon event.
Okay, you guys. So the final thing we just want to touch on really briefly is the retrogrades. And so retrogrades are really great to know about and be aware of because they really can help you plan out your year. Think travel, when to maybe cut your bangs, which we'll get into when we do an actual episode. But just a lot, it's really supportive in just making kind of some some decisions that of just kind of when to schedule things, when to maybe carve out extra time to, for your travel plans, things like that can be really helpful in knowing like the retrogrades that are coming and the timing of them. And so this year, of course, as always, we're going to have Mercury retrograde, and then we'll also see Mars close out a retrograde period on February 23rd. And then we'll also have Venus in retrograde March through April of this year. So we'll have a full episode on all of this that we will put out at a later date. So stay tuned for that and be on the lookout. And I think that's about it. We covered a lot today, you guys. We started talking about the eclipses first off, right off the bat, and really like the new growth and the lessons that we're going to be encountering this year. We talked about the shifts of Saturn and the generational planets into new signs, and really just like the overall climate of these changes, as well as how they're going to impact you on a personal level through your personal chart. So we hope that you found this episode really supportive, and keep in mind this is a really high level forecast, and we will be sure to unpack these topics in a whole lot more detail as we move throughout 2025.
Absolutely. Make sure you're noting the transits that feel really resonant to you or most important to you for your 2025 goals, your life. Keep a journal or notes about like what's alive for you over the next 12 months. The way I personally work with astrology is understanding these energies and the transits by looking backwards. And obviously with these major transits this year, you can't always look backwards and know what happened because we just were not here. But working with astrology by understanding overall how your life felt is the best way to understand what you can expect in future transits. So remember, these are tools. This isn't anything scary. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and our 2025 astrology forecast. As always, we will be back next week with another episode for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. And if you enjoyed today's episode and want to help us share the podcast on social media, we would really appreciate it. And you can also support us by rating and leaving a review wherever you listen to your podcast episode. So you can find us over at Those Astrology Girls on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, we love to hang out with you on socials. So see you next time, guys.